So a problem that I have with a lot of martial arts in general, it doesn't have to be one specific one over the other, is that there's a lot of bullshit techniques that are taught that don't necessarily apply to the street. Now, I'm guilty of this because as an instructor, I'm also responsible for what I teach to my students. And yes, there have been times in the past where I've taught techniques that really don't have much of an application, but that's because that's what I was taught when I was coming up in the ranks. And I didn't really have much of a thinking process back then to really go outside of the box and be like, does this really work? They show me something, I practice it, I apply it, great, we go home, end of the day. But the more I start branching out into other disciplines, you start getting different training partners, you get guys that are a little bit tougher, people that are going to restrain a little bit more. You really start to find out what does and doesn't work. One of the biggest things that I've had problems with in the past has been the application of wrist grabs to break any sort of clothing grip. And what I mean by that is if he's got some sort of collar tie, could be one hand, could be two hands, but I remember very vividly in my Hapkido system that we would go over specific wrist grabs from this position. Now, I'm going to let him relax so we can go over the specific techniques in general from here, but a lot of it was the idea that I throw a distraction strike, I come back, I grab the wrist, and we utilize this grip because, okay, he's already grabbing me, I can get control of the wrist, and now I can start applying wrist pressure, which yes, he's feeling this, you can tell based off his body motions, he looks like he's ready to cry, so I know that this is really working. You have variations of this, so it's not just this one. I can bring the wrist all the way around, and now I can come here and I can do this normal wrist lock. We have the S lock, which is also one of my personal favorites, and you get this person to drop real nicely. You can feed this into wrist locks and then apply it into arm bars, which if you've seen our most recent video, you understand that, hey, this doesn't really necessarily work, but that's besides the point. Point being with these wrist locks is this. In a real situation when a person's grabbing you hard as shit, you are not going to be able to simply just put this person into a wrist grab, even if I distract them. And we'll show you why. If he wants to grab on as tight as he can, now I can tell you that I'm stronger than him. I'm not going to question that, and neither should you. But I can apply pressure here. I can get a nice tight grip. You can see that he's stretching and flexing the wrist. And as I go to put him into a wrist grab, finally got it. And it was only a little bit, and I couldn't hold on to it much past there. So why are we teaching these types of techniques that don't necessarily have a direct application in the street? Now, some of you may say that there are some applications. Sure, maybe if I can, get a good hit and the wrist comes completely off and I'm able to maintain control of it, then I may be able to whip him into some sort of restraint technique. But keep in mind, in a situation like this, especially if it's a one-hand grab, first of all, they have a second hand free. And if I'm fiddling around too much trying to put on this technique, he's just going to whack me right in the face and it's going to be over before I even start. So in my opinion, in situations like this is not the time or place to put a wrist lock on somebody. At this point, I would rather just utilize the fact that they're controlling my grip and do one of two things. Either I'm going to break the grip right away, which is as simple as if this person were to grab me fresh, I just rip it off. Even if he gets a nice tight grip, I rip it off, okay? Simple jiu-jitsu technique, day 101 in the gi. Flex the gi a little bit. If I want to, I can even pull down on my own shirt a little bit, make it a little bit tighter in his grip himself, and I can still rip the hand off. It's gonna work. You can do it in the gi, you can do it in a t-shirt. It's not a big deal. But that allows me to disengage from the grip immediately, understanding that still, even if I have this, the chances of me being able to lock this person into a wrist lock are very slim. But instead, if I am able to maintain a grip, I can try and tie up with this person right away. I can work towards strikes, I can work towards the back, or I can simply just use this as a way to disengage, and I start making space, all right? Your other option, which may be better depending on the circumstances, especially if they're getting ready to start punching you, is utilize this grip, grab on nice and tight so that he can't pull his own hand back, and now I'm going to use this to my own advantage. I can literally step back and gravity drop him a little bit and just get him to lower his weight. Again, the chances of me actually getting him folded down to the ground are slim, but I can knock him off balance, which now I can grab his hair if I want to. Now we can work situations here where, okay, now the grip's broken. Now I might be able to come in with a wrist lock. Now, the only time that I would actually apply a wrist lock of any sort is if I am doing anything down here like this and I see that his hand is really relaxed, then maybe I can crank on the wrist lock. But again, if he's really flexing and making this real hard, even from this position, it is difficult still to get this wrist lock if he's resisting. Again, especially because he's not just going to keep his arm in place. He's going to be fighting and moving that hand around. He's going to be trying to re-grab himself so that I can't separate the wrist from that hand. It's going to be a catastrophe. So instead, focus on the bigger locks at this point, focus on the striking and go from there. I can also just tie in with this person from here. I can knee him on the side, pass through, work the back if you need to, take the person down. We can work into one of our self-defense chokes to control him from there. So I can utilize the fact that, hey, this person's made contact with me. I'm going to utilize this contact and counter grab. Get control of this person. Now I just drag this person nice and close because I guarantee you their intention was probably just to hold on and start punching me. and they're just using this as a way of keeping me in place. So if I try to run away or avoid this punch, he's always going to redirect it. So instead, let me get nice and close to him. It's going to be harder for him to punch me to begin with, but now I can start working this, break the grip. If I want to from here, I can clear that space and we get the distance. Sometimes you are going to learn material from different disciplines that may or may not always work, but it's your job as a self-defense individual to find what works within that realm and apply those pieces to the street. So again, instead of focusing so much on trying to wrist lock this person, understand one, again, this person's going to strike me, so I'd rather strike them first. So instead of me working on the wrist grab, I'm going to work on the fact that I do like that they get a nice tight control of the wrist. So whether I'm grabbing here or grabbing over the top, I'm preventing him the ability. So if he starts trying to pull his arm back, I've got it locked and now it's stuck to my chest, which now in turn means I can start utilizing this grip on my own to now counter grip him and work towards some sort of grip control from there. So take that aspect out of that drill rather than, okay, I'm going to work on these wrist locks. Focus on the fact that, okay, this person's connected with me. I'm going to maintain that connection and I'm going to use that to my advantage. Because again, if I focus too much on something that may not work, you're going to find yourself in a world of hell in a real situation. So just remember, not everything that you learn is going to be effective, but the best way to try it out is to pressure test it. Again, when we first start learning these, you go nice and easy. The person gives it to you, they let go, you work the techniques, they tap, great, it works. But start building up that resistance over time so that by the end of it, when they're fully locked on, okay, this isn't working, maybe I throw a distraction kick and then go, oh, okay, that does work. Or even after the kick, it's still too tight for me to grab. The only way to learn is to actually get in there and have that resistance. So give this a shot, but again, understand, take it with a grain of salt, find what does and doesn't work, use that to your advantage, and then build off that on your own. So, in my opinion, our wrist locks a great thing to utilize if someone is grabbing your clothing or hoodie or material, whatever the case is. No, break the grip and get away, or counter grip, get close, beat the hell out of them, stay alive, stay safe. We'll see you next time.